Could I return to the topic of the deposit return scheme? Last week, the Minister in charge in Scotland, Lorna Slater, suggested if an exemption from the UK internal market is not granted by the end of this month, indeed just over a week away, then the whole scheme is in jeopardy. First of all, Secretary of State, is that a timescale you recognise? Has that been passed on to you? And do you believe an exemption will or will not be issued in that period?
Well, it's a timescale that I've read about. It's a timescale that that was mentioned in the IMG this morning. That Circularity Scotland it was alluded to the fact it would fail if there was no exemption by the end of this month. I mean, I would say that that's entirely a matter for the Scottish Government. They have set up Circularity Scotland. What I'm concerned about is the money that may be lost by companies in the event of...
Come on to the money in a moment, but while it is clearly a Scottish Government proposal and they set the timeframes, etc., ultimately it will be up to you, and I think you said to Dr Whitford, across departments deciding on that exemption. Do you envisage it being a decision taken before the end of this month? I think when you appeared before us last time, you made an analogy with a previous request for an exemption and the time period. What was the time period with that?
So that was just over 3 months. So that request, which came formally in writing to minister, to Lorna Slater to George Eustace, and actually I alluded to this letter again this morning when we were meeting. That came in December. It was replied to in January of the years. I can't remember the specific years, so I won't quote them. And then we said that it would take circa 3 months. As it was that the whole thing had washed through by March. Now, by May, actually, well, between March and May. So there was one step in March and then another step in May. But what was given there was an exemption on plastic cutlery on the basis that the scheme was 6 months behind the UK government scheme. It was identical, and it was a time-limited exemption until the two schemes caught up with each other. So it was quite a relatively straightforward one to give, whereas there's much more divergence on these two schemes. This time it's much harder. We had no businesses writing to us saying this is terrible. Everyone accepted. My position is we should be building recycling as fast as we can. Some areas are more successful than others, but I'm very pro-recycling. But what I'm not pro is costing huge inflation to the consumer, or removing choice to the consumer, or damaging businesses, costing jobs, or damaging our trade within the UK, because 60% of Scotland's trade is with the rest of the UK. And I still give this example that when we, I'm told by one of the product manufacturers that they will have to add 10 pence to a plastic bottle to charge the consumer. Coca-Cola have told me it's 5 pence for a plastic bottle, 2 pence for a can, but their figures are lower because they've got volume on their side, and that's inflationary. 12 bottles of water from Aldi is £1.69. Under this scheme, it would have gone, and I've said this in the dispatch box, and I've said it in ministerial meetings, and no one's contradicted me. That would have gone to £5.29 in August from £1.69 in the shopping basket. £2.40 of that you could recover, 20p a bottle, but the other £1.20 is not recoverable. That is hugely inflationary in way of cost of living challenges, and I want to see the impact of that done in proper grown-up assessments, and the impact that it has is important when we come to just make our decisions on that and on trade and the damage it does to trade.
But I think the point I'm trying to get at, I mean, we're 9 days away from this deadline, which became public on Thursday.
I'm avoiding your point.
No, but I'm asking, is it even possible for the UK government to make that determination in the next 9 days? Because since the informal request went in and the date that the Greens and the Scottish Government used, or the formal letter and the actual trigger for this mechanism to be established, the scheme has changed considerably.
Correct.
So how can the UK government...
Correct. And there's still problems to be ironed out around online, as I said earlier, online retailers not supplying recyclable products to homes. Tesco Online and all the others have said they can't do it. And there are a number of other issues. But what I would say is this. At the IMG, the inter-ministerial government meeting on the 17th of April, I asked for impact assessments to be done on consumer choice, consumer costs, to businesses, to trade within the UK, and to international trade. And in other words, what effect it has on trade deals. You know, will France and Australia and others, New Zealand, not change their labelling runs to not supply Wales or Scotland if they include glass because the market isn't big enough and they can sell it elsewhere, and all these things. And I haven't seen those proper impact assessments yet, and I can't come to a decision on an exemption until I see proper impact assessments so that we know we're making the right decision and we're not causing unnecessary consequences.